Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Pine, and I'm the chairman of the Norfolk Historical Commission. This morning I've been invited to have a house tour of this newly renovated, restored house. The members of the church who own the house are going to give us a tour this morning. So come with me and enjoy the tour. We're here for our tour.
Welcome to the Parsonage of the Federated Church.
This is Phil Lukens and Jim Lehan, and they're the prime movers here who are responsible for all this great progress in this building, which was really endangered a year ago. We were very concerned about its future. So proceed.
As were we.
And we still are on some issues. But not right now. It's all primed and ready to have the new pastor of our church move into it, and he's excited to do so. And we've tried to retain as much of the old, at the same time making it a modern convenience home. And I think they've done a good job on preserving all that could be preserved. And there's 6 fireplaces in this house. And
are they all still here?
They're all still here.
Not working, but they're all here.
Yep. They're not covered over.
No.
This is the only floor we couldn't retain. Unfortunately, we had to replace it. It was so rotted that this one had to go, but all the other floors in the house are original. We were able to preserve them all, and as you can see, they're just absolutely beautiful.
It's all wormholes.
Absolutely beautiful.
That's a great accomplishment. And I love what you've done with the stairway here in this front hallway.
The stairs are all been
Because when you come in the
stripped
door,
down.
this is what you see. You know, you're not going to really be looking at the floor. You see this ancient stairway that is.
And this is the original railings that were on it, and you can see these holes. They had originally a wood peg in them so that
Just holding
railing-
it together.
it could all come apart so you could get furniture up and down the stairs.
Great. And you have to point out the wall treatment. It's just fantastic.
Well, this is the old wallpaper, and we kept it. We did paint over it, but it's got such a beautiful style and character to it that it's just classic to its
I don't
time.
know if the detail will
I
show
guess you
up
can
in
call
the
it
picture.
embossed.
I
Yeah,
would say,
yeah.
yeah.
And it may be a copy of the tin. Maybe this was
Could be.
cheaper than tin. It
Yeah.
kind of echoes and mimics the
It's been here for as long as we can remember.
feeling of a tin wall, but it's
But we wanted to retain it. And,
beautiful.
well, if we walk this way,
Go this way.
this is the dining room. And every room pretty much has a fireplace, as you can see here. They're all in original condition.
I'm going to show you this cabinet. I love the cabinet. This might have been a later addition, but I really don't think so, judging by the
Wide board behind.
the wide boards. Well, this is put in when they built the cabinet, right? So
Right.
this kind of beading is as old as you get. In a panel door like this, a raised panel door,
Right.
is as old as the house.
And this is another original cabinet. Now that piece of piping, we found it in a little corner, and we don't know what it was, whether it was a chimney liner or at one time, or a piece of crockery, or...
I've heard these cupboards called Bible cupboards. Have you heard that? And also tobacco.
It would keep the word warm.
It would keep it dry. And one of the efforts was to keep books from getting moldy. So that would be a place that would not be moldy.
Yeah.
But this is as old as the house. And as you can see, there was an oven here. When they decided to stop cooking in the dining room, they might have decided we didn't need an oven anymore. And I was speaking to Jim earlier about this piece of iron that's right here. It's called a crane. And it's very rare to still have the cranes in an antique house.
And
'cause
they're
they get,
in three of
it's
the
amazing.
fireplaces.
They might have been boarded up and closed in there.
All of the beams on these floors, and you'll see that when we get down in the basement, are tree trunks. They're literally tree trunks. Some of them even have the bark still on them. This floor, unfortunately, was so rotted that we had to replace a good deal of them, but most of them are still here.
And the colors were chosen by a historical gal for colors of this time period.
Is that
So
right?
hopefully the colors are true to, and that's true throughout the house.
Couldn't find anybody that remembered.
Phil, tell the story about the dispatch.
Oh, yes.
Well, when we acquired the home, Harold Campbell could live here until he died. And when he passed on, well, I can still remember as a kid that he would be reclined on a day bed there because he was so crippled up with arthritis. But he used this as the dispatch center because he was the fire chief at the time. And when I was a kid, he was a bus driver. And yeah, and the buses then didn't have seats going this way. They went the length of the bus down the sides.
Didn't this continue to be the dispatch center even after the police station was built?
The original police
The
station.
original.
I think I learned that at town
Right,
meeting.
the original.
I was listening at town meeting very
Right.
attentively.
Yeah.
The original police station was built in '66, and during its construction and for a few years after, this remained as the dispatch center.
Yeah, and
And it was when the church agreed to that. Actually, the church had purchased it at that time, but it stayed as a dispatch center for quite a few
because
years.
Harold didn't die until '67.
I think we have a picture of Dot Campbell standing out in front of this house.
And then she took the dispatch, and actually she had it in the house she lived in down on
That's
Rockwood
right.
Road,
Yeah.
Okay,
which was a warehouse.
yeah,
Wonderful history here.
right, it is. It's a great history, and I was saying earlier that the history of this house is revealing itself just as we do the work on the house and as we pass our passion and interest in history back and forth. Up until just a week ago, maybe a little bit prior to a week ago, we thought this was the Solomon Mann House built in 1810. And since then, and before then, our researcher on the Historical Commission, Barbara Bartholomew, has been hard at work doing very scholarly research. And she determined that the house was sold in 1774
1774.
Right.
Yeah.
from Elijah Ware to Josiah Ware. And this is the first Josiah Ware, one of 4 Josiah Wares. And I don't know all the story of all the Josiah Wares.
But I
We
think
won't go
Barbara
into that. But there are 4 separate lives there.
Yeah.
So, shall we go on?
Sure.
Yeah. Now the kitchen we have modernized, as you can see, but it has retained all of its old character. I'll just point out, I don't know if the camera can show it, but when we were refurbishing this area, we found that the floor on this corner of the kitchen versus the floor on this side of the kitchen was 4.5-inch difference. So if anyone was wondering why their glass looked like it was leaning, there was a good reason for it.
It's level now.
So it is level now. We had to build it up, and unfortunately, as a result, we had to do a little bit of work on the hearth area here because it was dangerous. People would fall down
Sure.
into it. But everything else of the original fire is all of the original fireplace, and it's just a magnificent fireplace. The original ovens, it's just beautiful.
I see an old cupboard over a fireplace, or when you're looking at old paneling, if you look on the inside, you can see that reveals hand planing marks, which shows that this is as old as the house. It's not a reproduction. And this kind of a raised panel also is very old. It's as old as the house. And we historical buffs are always looking for little clues that date a house. And when you see those hand planing marks, it's a dead giveaway. So this is just a beautiful example of a restored, saved, preserved old New England hearth. This is the brick oven, which you probably recognize. Many people don't realize that there was actually a flue in the oven so that enabled them to make the fire in the oven, and the smoke would go up the chimney and not into the room. Because think about it, if you had to bake bread in this oven, just the fire from over here, it would never get hot enough to actually bake anything. This originally had a metal door, maybe even a wooden door first. That doesn't remain, but that's okay. This is where they kept the wood. And again, we have this great crane, which is my favorite thing because they don't usually survive. So that's
All
that.
right, well, let's move on. Did we go into this room?
No, let's go upstairs though.
Oh, you wanna go upstairs?
So we
Okay.
utilize all the stairways.
Oh, good deal.
More details here. This is a typical example of 18th century construction. It's called a plank wall, and you can see the boards are way, way wide. And this is beaded right here. And again, more evidence that this is original to the house. And this doorway, this raised panel construction looks like around 1790, maybe even later than 1800. But very, very old. And all this beaded board in the stairway is again all original, and it's just so exciting to see it preserved.
That's all either walnut or chestnut.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my God.
You had to replace a couple of all the rooms were heated by a fireplace. We were able to, these floors were just in atrocious condition. We weren't sure that we were going to be able to salvage them, especially the one in the next room, which you'll see here shortly. But this, they just came out absolutely magnificent.
You can't beat old pine.
No, it's just beautiful.
It's such a beautiful color and,
It is.
and warmth.
I think they call it pumpkin.
Pumpkin pine, I've heard it called that.
Yeah.
I think it was called pumpkin pine. But anyway, it is beautiful, and we were just so thrilled that they all were able to be restored.
This mantelpiece is from the Colonial Revival period, because you can see how it's a little more fancy and a little more elaborate. This was probably put in here in the early 1900s, which is fun that it's preserved because it shows how the house has evolved. This is a living house that has been used, not just in the 1700s and not just in the 1800s, but in the 20th century as well. And if you can imagine how much heat this fireplace must have thrown off, it must have been very cozy.
I wouldn't be surprised if originally there was no mantle.
Yeah, it
over a
must have been,
fireplace that shallow because of the heat. Everything on it would have burnt.
right, it was something much more simple. But that's just great. You can see how many times that's been painted.
And I think you'll find that that door has one of your old original.
Yeah, this is
Latches.
called a Norfolk latch.
Right, and it has the old original lock, the old latch.
Look at that. This is called a Norfolk latch, and I saw downstairs another kind that's called a Suffolk latch. This is put in around 1820. And it's just great to see everything so intact. I mean, the history of the room is still intact with us. You can over-restore and try to make everything rigidly of one period, and that's not the way to do it.
Well, you lose the character of the house.
Yeah.
And again, all this paint was chosen to be historical.
This is kind of neat in here. We have a number of little funny little places here, but this one, you can really begin to see some of the old character.
Oh,
Betsy,
yes.
we'll let you, but this goes up, this is a little secret stairway up to the attic. There is a main stairway.
Oh, there's another stairway?
There's another
Oh, yes.
stairway, yeah. But this
Oh.
is really neat, and you can see the structure of the chimney in here.
Oh my goodness. Well, it looks like a witch's stairway.
We don't know what went on in here in the 1700s.
Yeah. Isn't that something? And I'm always looking at doorways because it tells when homes were built. Isn't that great? Well, that is the narrowest stairway I think I've ever seen.
But
But a
neat.
treasure.
Oh yes, it's great to have it preserved.
Can you get the camera in there?
It is neat.
I bet a lot of children played
I
going
suspect.
up and down these
Suspect,
stairways.
yeah.
This is something.
And again, see the pegs in the,
Yeah. Oh my
it's all pegs, so it could have been taken apart for putting stuff up and down.
I don't think they were moving queen-size beds, however.
Now this is original, but look how much darker the
Right,
pine is.
this floor, this is one of the floors we did not think we could salvage. This was really in bad condition, and amazingly enough, we did.
It looks great to me. I mean, I'm used to
looks
not
great to
seeing-
me too.
But we could never figure out what two round circles
Yeah,
were.
there are mysteries to the
Or what
house.
they
We don't know what
represented.
they are.
Yeah. I sense the presence of a chimney stack going into that fireplace. You know, from a coal, not coal, but some kind of a stove.
Yeah, could be.
And then they would just shoot those. But I don't know, then they'd have to cover it all up.
Yeah, and there's no, I mean,
This-
that means the stove would have had to have been downstairs in the dining room. There's no evidence or marks
Mm-hmm.
down there.
Well, something was definitely coming up through that floor.
That's what we think, but we don't know what.
Here's another Norfolk latch. May I peek?
Oh,
Sure,
please.
please do.
Oh my goodness. What a great cupboard.
And you can see the structure of the chimney, the big centerpiece chimney.
Yeah. Wow. Again, this is from the Colonial Revival period. See how it's made to look a little more grand?
Right.
And that's because in the 1920s, there was a rage to have everything colonial. And they just wanted it to be a little fancier. So this is a little fancier than what you would have seen downstairs. But it's a great example of the period. And look at that ancient fireplace. Again,
Yep,
these
shallow,
people were
very shallow.
these people were warm.
Yes, they were. This is the remaining fireplace. Again, if you were able to preserve the wall, the floors, and some minor patching.
This is another bedroom.
Yeah, this is
Could
kind
be.
of this is kind of neat. And you can see in here some of the old beam structures of the house.
Yeah.
All the old
There's
hand
definite wood
There
stove.
was a
was a wood
stove
stove,
yeah.
that would have sat on that hearth, I'm
Yep.
sure.
Right through there.
Yep.
And see, this was a little more of a utilitarian space, not as fancy as the two front bedrooms. So they didn't bother to fancy up this fireplace. This is more like it originally would have been, probably without this mantelpiece, just plain,
Right.
just plain. And again, you can see the hand planing marks. These
Yeah,
things,
that's all again, that's
this is
black
all-
walnut or chestnut.
this was probably originally just a plank wall. The closets may have been added later, but this has been here since 1775. This is all the oldest kind of construction with the beaded boards. It's great.
And you see how wide they are?
Yeah, more beaded boards here, hand planed. This is the part of the house that isn't as fancy as the front, so they didn't bother to redo it and dress it up
No one
in
came
the
up to the
1820s.
bedrooms, except family.
The fancier rooms would be in the front.
Right.
Isn't that great? Let's see what's around here.
Well, that closet's all been
Oh.
cedar lined.
Yes.
The Reverend Lowell Concert did all that when he was living in here.
Yes. It's interesting. You can see that there's a little transition there.
We can go upstairs.
Right.
The chamfered beam that's in the peak of the roof is called the ridgepole, and the pegs that are coming through that beam are holding the roof on. Are holding all these other beams together. It's like it's put together like a piece of furniture, and it's kind of exciting to see the skeleton here of the roof and the skeleton of the house. And it's just beautifully framed. And it looks like it's all mostly 90% original. There's a few new supports in here that you can see, but even they seem to be pegged, so maybe they are all original. They look original. And look at these ancient boards in the roof. You can see all the nail holes from 200 years coming through.
The siding of the house, when we pulled off the old siding, is also all of the old boards, and we were able to retain them.
You
So
were,
they're
isn't
all
that
still
great?
they're all still on the house.
Yeah, that's great.
This is
Yeah.
the end of the original house right here,
Okay.
and then this part we don't know when it was added.
Well, we have a picture in our files with the Historical Commission.
Well, part of our discovery, we'll figure it
It's
out.
part of the discovery.
Yeah.
It's dated
Yeah.
1906.
Okay,
Yeah.
And
that sounds about right.
it shows the wing, and it shows them building the porch in front of the
Okay.
wing. So I
This
think,
this is all newer.
Yeah, this is all hard pine. Which
Yes.
one is my house is done with, is all hard pine.
and here we have some more evidence of this textured wallpaper.
Yeah,
And this kind of dates this wallpaper to the
1900s.
1915, 1920.
Yeah.
And it's so cool that it's still here.
Again, the stairways are narrow and steep, so
Okay? This wall is crooked, which is not startling to me because I live in an old house and I'm used to things being crooked. But when you look at that front door, you can see that it's kind of tipping in, and it's a brand new door. The door isn't crooked, it's just that the wall that it's hung on is crooked. But it's all very structurally sound, it's not going to fall on
Yeah, we
anybody.
had quite a challenge in getting that in because it was a trick to be able to open the door. It was so crooked, but it is fun.
But we've examined the basement, and the structural reinforcement that's been done in the basement is commendable because all the original structure is intact, but it's just been
do you want that?
refurbished.
Let's take a look
You
down
want to take
there.
a look downstairs and see it? Okay, well, you'll take
Save the
over.
best for last.
You take over.
No. I'm gonna actually.
You'll know what when we open it.
This we had to do a lot of structural work down here. As you can see, it's all fieldstone basement. with a minor exception of when the bulkhead was put in. And Bill, I don't know when that was done.
I think when we took over the home.
60s, in the
Yeah,
60s? Then?
late 60s.
Okay. But this, as you can see, this is just magnificent. This is the centerpiece of the fireplace. You can see how the foundation was built. We had to, this was all beamed. A number of the beams, unfortunately, were beginning to rot, so we had to shore it all up. And in fact, the house was actually sinking in some places, so you can see all of the work that was done, especially over here, where we had to shore up the walls. But if you look up in the ceiling, you can see the original structure. These are tree beams. These are just trees.
Old trees.
Old trees.
Okay.
That was the whole, and this one right here behind you is an example of one of the ones that was rotted.
Oh, it looks like it's compromised
See?
slightly.
And you can see the condition that we had and why we had to put in the other flooring. But we left that just as sort of a memory of what it was like.
My goodness.
But the structure here is just absolutely magnificent. Absolutely magnificent.
These timbers are all original.
Those are all original. Yeah.
And that supports the whole chimney network.
They were not white. They were all the original wood color. We've put a preservative on all of the timber to keep it from rotting. So the color is not original, but the timbers are.
And you can see these little dots as evidence of powder post beetles.
Right.
Yep.
And I was told they can eat an awful lot before they compromise the wood.
Right.
So you can see that the insects have been doing a little damage here, but you know, it's still so strong.
Yeah. I'm not sure that you can get a picture of that beam, but that's one of the beams that we had to replace, and you can see how rotted it was. But a lot of structural work had to be done down here to preserve the house.
It really is.
Come over here. Yeah, there you go.
It feels very secure, and it looks so clean and well done. I just think they've done a marvelous job here. These piers, along with posts that were on the corner, are holding up the structure that holds up all the fireplaces.
All the fireplaces and the ovens, etc.
That's right. It's a
For all intents and purposes, the house.
It's a huge brick mass above this center. All right, now we're going to show you a secret room. This is kind of an exciting feature of many center chimney 18th century homes, and that is because of the nature of the two fireplaces on the two front rooms. It's not just solid brick, it would be too heavy and too expensive. So they had to figure out how to make an arch with the flue. And in this little room, you will see this whole structure of the chimney works in this house. This little door is as old as the house, and it's one of the best places to see this feature. And that feature is these hand planing marks that show that it was constructed before 1800, probably 1775. And inside the little room, you can see old lath and plaster that's as old as the house, and the marvelous workmanship that shows how the fireplaces and the ovens were constructed to go all the way up to the second floor. Keep the house from burning down, but yet give you an oven that can get up to a very high temperature to cook bread and other things. So in this room, you can see this is the back, the dome of the oven that went into the dining room, which years ago, this was really used for cooking. And to see that it's still intact is wonderful, because so often they get taken out and thrown away because people say, who cares about a brick oven? Now we have wood stoves, so we don't need brick ovens. And here's the other one. There's two here. This one goes into the kitchen, the old kitchen, and it's facing out that way. These got very, very hot, of course, and so the fact that they're away from the beams, it would help to save the house from burning down. And then these go upstairs. There are no ovens upstairs. There's fireplaces, and these go up to support the fireplaces. And it shows here that these are all of one era. There's no monkeying around with different kinds of mortar or brick. These are all just very, very ancient, 18th century even, perhaps, bricks. Okay, this wall that doesn't look like anything is really kind of cool because it shows that it's original to the very, very first days of the house. These old planks are just roughly sawn tree trunks, tree pieces. But the thing that I was interested in is this plaster. And you can see that these lath boards are all uneven. And what they would do is they would just hack into a board and pull it apart and apply the horsehair plaster to this board. This is not like the 1820 lath that's upstairs. This is as old as the house. So this could be 1770, which is really something to see. Anything to add, Jim?
I think you got it.
Now, what do you think? Underground Railroad, Indians, whatever?
I'll go
All
with
of the above.
I'll go with them all.
I think it's a little bit of truth in all of them.
Yeah, there probably is.
But again, Underground Railroad, it's another whole area of study.
Yeah.
If you want to study the Underground Railroad, oh my goodness, there's a real path. There's a real road.
What's neat too is the bark is still on most of these boards.
I
Look
know.
over here in the corner, all the bark is still on it.
Isn't that amazing? And those powder post beetles, they've been doing a little. Oh, look at that! There's the bark right on it. All right, isn't that something else? Well, you must have been pretty excited to see this.
We were. You should go in and look at it with the light so you can really see it.
No,
This
it should
is
be.
Scott. What's your last name?
Cousineau.
Cousineau, the new pastor of the Federated Church. And I'm excited to meet you today, Scott, because I just learned your name this morning. And because we have recently discovered that this was the home of the very first pastor of the North Rentham Parish, the Norfolk Church, now that it's being occupied and lived in by a pastor of the church, it's very exciting to us to, it's kind of like it's come full circle. And the history is repeating itself in a way.
Well, and as the history is being revealed, it's fascinating for myself and for my wife as well. And we're very excited. And we're very excited to learn that this was the home of the first pastor. And
Yeah.
so the fact that this has come full circle to be the parsonage again is very exciting to us. And I think very exciting for the members of the church as well.
Well, it should be a source of great pride to Jim and Phil and everybody affiliated with the Federated Church that such a fantastic job has been done to restore this house to the community because it was really in danger, right?
It was in danger for sure.
Yeah, so it's very exciting. One of the goals of the Historical Commission is to encourage people in the community to be interested in their local history. So when it starts to move in that direction, it gives us more encouragement to do more research and to be more excited about it ourselves. And this has just been a spiraling up situation where we're doing more research and more work is being done, so it's just a really good story.
Right. Well, and I think for a community to maintain and preserve houses of this character and this vintage is really important to remember that history and the community that developed out of those early founders. I think it's very important to maintain that. And so I'm glad that the Historic Commission is doing that. And I'm glad that we could play a part in that as well.
Yeah, it's just a good story and it's a source of pride for all of us.